Hello world, and thanks again for tuning into my channel called The Right Number. Yes, I am the Mystic Philosopher. I'm also known among my peers and members of my club as Dr. David G. Jones, the founder of the Mystic Philosophers Secular Membership Club of Reason. Now, if you are tuning into this channel for the very first time, again, let me welcome you. And as customary, just let me quickly tell you what this channel, The Right Number, is all about. The Right Number is a YouTube, or my YouTube media channel through which I, the Mystic Philosopher, share my perspectives, or some of my perspectives, also known or also called Another Perspective, The Time for Reason, and almost any and every topic or every subject that requires people who possesses an open and independent mind, people who possess critical thinking, or people who possess the ability to think critically, people who are intellectually honest, are people who possesses the ability to be true to themselves, people that are truth seekers, and above all, people or humans who possess the ability to apply their basic common sense if or when necessary. The Right Number is also a channel that invites and welcomes all viewers to visit, watch, listen, learn, to critique, and also to share your comments and your feedback. So please feel free to do so. One of my favorite and regular quotes and suggestions, I might add, is that of the late Václav Havel. He said, and I quote, "Seek the company of those who seek the truth and run away from those who have found it." Unquote. So I try to stay as far as possible from people who claim to have the truth, to find the truth, all those who claim to find the truth, etc. So I seek the company of those who are always seeking. Seeking the truth is also, and seeking the truth and seeking the company of those who are also seeking the truth are also two of the basic philosophies of my peers and members of the Mystic Philosophers Secular Membership Club of Reason. Now, in continuation of my series of presentations titled Redemption from the Curse of the Black Spell, the topic of this presentation is why is the N-word now the most offensive word in English? This presentation is a two-part presentation titled, again, why is the N-word now the most offensive word in English, Part 1, and why is the N-word now the most offensive word in English, Part 2. I encourage you to please watch both presentations, Part 1 and Part 2, before you rush and form opinions, or form an opinion, or make judgment, or any comments. I encourage you to first watch and listen, so you can be well informed before you criticize or make come to any rush conclusion. This video presentation may also be seen as a response video to a YouTube video which is titled "The Stream, the N-word," and that's a video I watched quite recently. So this is a sort of response video to that as well. In this part 1 presentation, I will be doing what I think from my perspective is a critical analysis of the moderator of the program, and by doing so I hope to, that's the moderator of the program called the stream, and the stream, the N-word, and by doing so, by doing this critical analysis, I hope to point out what I perceived as either flaws or ignorance in her introductions or in her introductory statements. And I will give reasons and examples as to why I think they are such, as to why I think they are flaws, or why they are either flaws or ignorance. So please pay attention so that you can rebut what I will be saying in this presentation with accurate information. In part 2 of this same video presentation, I will be doing the same blunt, going to be very blunt, critical analysis. But only this time it will be a blunt and critical analysis of the renowned African American scholar, Dr. Cornel West, in his response to the question, why is the N-word now the most offensive word in English? Which is from the same program that I watch called The Stream. And by doing so, I hope to point out what I also perceived, from my perspective, of course, to be very serious flaws, inconsistencies, ignorance, or simply him, Dr. Cornel West, being plain intellectually dishonest. So it's either it is serious flaws, his inconsistencies, his ignorance, or he's just being plain intellectually dishonest. So stay tuned and pay close attention. The great and famous Dr. Cornel West will be coming under a very critical analysis by I, the Mystic Philosopher, in this presentation in part 2. But also watch part 1 so you can see how it fades into part 2. Now, as part of her introduction to the question and topic for discussion on her program, The Stream, the moderator for the program euphemistically quoted a portion of the meaning and definition of the word, of the English word nigger, from an online English dictionary called dictionary.com. I said, please note, I said that she euphemistically quote, because I note with much intrigue that she did not quote directly, meaning she did not read word for word or as it was written from the dictionary. She did not read word for word from the dictionary. She did not quote exactly from the dictionary. But possibly she may have received permission to edit the dictionary, or possibly she may have invoked some form of editing rights that may be awarded to journalists, I don't know. Or maybe she just arbitrarily edit it for her own, for the show's own convenience, which itself could be interpreted as plagiarizing or borderline plagiarism. But notably, she completely blotted out the written word nigger, and while reading she replaced it with the euphemism, the phrase, the N-word. Now, this is what she said. She said, and I quote, we found that dictionary.com actually says that the quote N-word is now probably the most offensive word in English. Its degree of offensiveness has increased markedly in recent years, although it has been used in a derogatory manner since at least the Revolutionary War. Unquote. Now, having checked the dictionary for myself, having checked the dictionary to verify this for myself, this is what I, the Mystic Philosopher, have found, that dictionary.com actually, the word actually meaning existing as a fact, this is what dictionary.com said, and I quote, "The term nigger is now probably the most offensive word in the English, or rather in English. Its degree of offensiveness has increased markedly in recent years, although it has been used in a derogatory manner since at least the Revolutionary War." Unquote. Now, I will be quoting and commenting on the entire definition from this site, dictionary.com, later on to the end of this part 1 and into part 2 of this presentation. So I will be quoting exactly and commenting on what is there. So please stay tuned. Now, for the record, and as you can check and see for yourselves, dictionary.com did not use the phrase, the N-word is a phrase, or the euphemism, the N-word, in this part of the definition that I have just read. They did not use the N-word there, and please check it for yourself. Nor do I think or believe that that was their intention. From my humble perspective, having checked the dictionary for myself, this online dictionary called dictionary.com did not give a definition for the phrase the N-word. The phrase or the euphemism, the N-word, for all intents and purposes, could mean and represent any word that maybe begin with the letter N, or the letter N. The phrase, the N-word, could represent any word in the English language that begins with the letter N. For example, the N-word could represent nothing or no thing. It could represent naught, as in the North Pole. It could represent Niagara, as Niagara Falls, as in Niagara Falls. You name it. But it, meaning dictionary.com, gave a definition for the word, or if you prefer, for the term nigger. The dictionary, by employing the use of modern technology, such as state-of-the-art dictionary, I might add, by employing the use of modern technology by employing the use of modern technology to the maximum, I might add, it even gave the audio pronunciation of the word nigger, so as to properly educate, to properly inform, and in every attempt using their state-of-the-art technology, right, to sort of minimize confusions among its readers and listeners. You can check dictionary.com for yourself, and if you have audio on your computer, just simply press the pronunciation and you'll hear the word nigger. So not only did it spell it, write it, it also pronounced it. It's there for everyone to see. Now, and in all fairness to the moderator of the program, the stream, and I recommend people to watch it right here on YouTube. In all fairness to her, I must and will admit that she did say earlier in her introduction that, and I quote her, she said, "Now you will notice throughout the course of the program, we are choosing not to use the word itself. Everyone knows what it is, and we feel we don't actually need to say it to get our point across," unquote. And I strongly disagree. I personally think that this is not only an insult to our human intelligence and a very convenient form of a cop-out, but also that this is just one manifestation of ignorance and dishonesty at its maximum. By her own assumption and admission, if everyone knows what it is, then why not just say the word? From my perspective, not uttering, not vocalizing, not pronouncing, or not saying a word, any word, and in this case the word nigger, especially if in your thoughts, if in your mind, if in your heart, in your soul, if in your conscience and in the core of your very innermost being, you honestly know that your intention is not to willfully demean, is not to willfully insult, despise, denigrate, to willfully subjugate, or to willfully malign an individual or a group of people, etc. Is either one is being ignorant or one is just plain mentally and intellectually dishonest. It is a true manifestation of a deficiency in human integrity from my perspective. In fact, from my perspective, it is far more insulting, far more demeaning, denigrating, far more subjugating, far more condescending and maligning to an individual's intelligence and to a people's intelligence when the euphemism, the N-word, is used either as an adjectival phrase to describe them or as a noun to represent them in the place of the word nigger. From my perspective, when people or when a person consciously, or if you prefer knowingly, or even unconsciously, unknowingly, use the euphemism, the N-word, in the place of the real word or the actual word nigger, as an adjective to describe or as a noun to represent a person or a group of persons, it is like they are thinking and saying to themselves that this individual is truly a nigger. This group of people is truly a group of niggers. This individual is too dumb, or this group of people is too dumb. They are far too ignorant to even know what I mean and what I am talking about and what I think of them. This individual or this group of people is far too dumb and ignorant to the point that they will only be insulted. They will only be offended and become agitated by the sound of the word, by the resonance, by the verbal pronunciation of the word, but not by the ideas, not by the thoughts and the intentions that create the word and that which the word represents. From my perspective, it is like saying that this individual is a minor, or this group of people are minors and minorities. They are just not mentally mature enough or intellectually capable enough to think and understand for themselves that what you are thinking about, talking about, and describing is that which the English word nigger represents. This individual or this group of people is far too dumb and ignorant to the point that they will not and cannot recognize the fact that one can lie and deceive others with their words, and especially with euphemisms. But one just cannot lie or deceive oneself in his or her own thoughts. So it's like you know what you mean, but you're just not saying what you mean. Here's another fact from my perspective that most people either don't know or either they take for granted. It is the fact that you cannot talk about something that does not exist. Therefore, the fact that you are talking about niggers, using euphemisms or not, means that niggers exist. Even if they exist only in your mind. Whatever or wherever you may conceive that thing called mind to be. Therefore, if a person or a group of people fulfill the requirements and characteristics of the definitions of the English word nigger, meaning if he or she acts like a nigger, talks like a nigger, and walks like a nigger, and manifests the characteristics of a nigger, then the most logical conclusion that our senses would or should make is that's a nigger. What else could you come up with other than to be deceptive or to lie or to use euphemisms? However, if he or she or if a group of people does not act like a nigger, talk like a nigger, or walk like a nigger, or manifest the characteristics of a nigger, if they are by no means qualify as being a nigger or niggers, then he or she is definitely not a nigger, or this group of people are not niggers. If you or anyone should knowingly, willingly, condescendingly, deceptively, and intentionally or otherwise call, label, and name someone that is not a nigger, then he or she should be prepared to suffer the consequences of their gross, irresponsible, and deliberate actions, whatever the consequences may be. In English, for example, or in English law, it is called defamation of character. It is also called slander or libel, etc. If I, for example, willfully and deceptively call someone a murderer or a thief, etc., and if there is no evidence that such a person is guilty of my accusation, then I can be held liable in the court of law. And that is why we must speak and act responsibly towards each other. Now, from my perspective, before we can speak and act responsibly, attentively, ceremoniously, considerately, courteously, decorously, politely, reverentially, and with due respect towards each other or simply towards another person, first in our minds we must first think of each other as a fellow natural, native, earthly humans. Now I want you to please note that I did not say we must first think of each other simply as humans, or as human beings, or as humankind, or as a kind of human. But I specifically said that we must first think of each other as being our fellow natural, native, earthly humans. Secondly, we must first think of each other as our equal and as equal. Now, when I say equal, I am not talking about the systems and society's concept of its elusive equality. The word concept means cunning ideas, lies, and deceptive ideologies of equality. I'm not talking about the system's cons and concept of equality. For example, I'm not talking about believing, acting, or behaving like fools who think that in the normal order of things in the system and the system society, that we are all equal. That we are equal to the prime minister. That we are all equal to the president, to the king or queen. That we are all equal to the rich and powerful, to the boss. That the boss is equal, that the powerful is equal to the powerless. Those who believe that the civilian and the ordinary citizen is equal to the police and the armed forces, etc. From my perspective, that is naive thinking and ignoramus thinking, or simply dishonest thinking. But equal as natural native earthly humans, equal meaning we are aware and recognize the fact that we are all here and are all from our Mother Earth. Equal meaning we know and accept the fact that we are made up of the same stuff. The same stuff called nothing. Therefore, we are essentially nothing. No thing. Equal meaning that we are not our bodies. We are in essence nobody. Therefore, we are in essence nobody. Or nobodies, if you will. And that it is the system and its society that is telling us that we are somebodies. And it is the system and society that is trying to make us into somebodies. Equal meaning that we are not at all important. Meaning if or when we die, the world will continue to evolve. The earth will continue to turn, and life will continue here without any one of us, if not all of us. In fact, if or when some of us die, the world and life might even get better for those that are left behind. Equal meaning that regardless of our station in the system or in life, we recognize the fact that we are all born to die and that we are all dying. That each breath we take, we are one breath away from taking our last breath. Equal meaning regardless of who or what we may think we are, and regardless of who or what others may think we are, the fact is that we can only take one breath at a time, eat one meal at a time, live only one day at a time, sleep in only one bed at a time, and focus on only one thing at a time. Third, we must think of each other as deserving of our respect, deserving of our attention and our care, etc. And fourth, we must and should know and recognize whose language we are speaking and using to communicate. And above all, we should make the greatest effort to know and recognize the meanings and the definitions of each and every word we use in the language, and then carefully choose them, especially when we are using them to describe and represent each other. Fifth, we should not be calling, labeling, and profiling people and individual niggers, black, or Negroes, etc. if or when they don't truly meet the requirements of those nouns and adjectives. But I will be talking more on that point later. Two other very important facts that I might add or very briefly mention here, and two facts that we should bear in mind are: one, the sound of a word may be bad in one language and good in another language. Or a word may have the same sound in two or more languages, but not the same meanings. In fact, they may have completely different meanings. The second fact we should bear in mind here is, here on the physical plane, it is not the sound or resonance of a word any word for that matter, in a language or any language, that is the most offensive, that is the most deadly, and the most destructive, etc. It is not the sound or the resonance. For example, it is not the sound or the resonance of the word nigger in the English language that is the most offensive, the most deadly, and the most destructive. It is not the sound or the resonance of the word that is the most hypnotizing, the most traumatizing and paralyzing, etc. It is the destructive energy. It is the evil and the demonic spirit entity, or the evil and demonic spirit entities that are captured, that are coded and embedded in the word's frequency vibration through induction and association that is the most destructive. The words we speak to each other are either casting spells or blessings, or spells or curses. They are either words of life or words of death. For example, according to the Christian Bible, and I quote, the spirit gives life, the flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of spirit and life, unquote. This is from the book of John 6:63. Therefore, censoring or trying to censor the word nigger, which is a legitimate English word, is not only being dishonest, but is also a trick of the devil that is being perpetrated by the evil system, or by the devil's evil system, in an attempt to continue confounding, convincing, convicting, converting, confusing, and controlling the minds and the latent intelligence of us, its subjects, its people, its cattle, and its sheep. That's why in rebellion of the system and its cohorts, cons, the youths